mouse. There we go. Well, hey, welcome everybody. Melissa, thanks for joining us today.
Happy to be here. Hey, Wayne, I'm not getting any volume.
Yeah, your audio is really, really weak.
Yeah.
How about now?
That's great.
Better.
Okay.
Yeah. And if you could tilt the screen down a little bit, potentially.
How about
Oh, because he wiggled it. There you go.
Okay, there we go. Hi, people.
hello? There we go. Okay, great. So anyway, wonderful to have you all here. Melissa, thanks for joining us. Most of you have heard me talk about Melissa Ford, my coach, and she's the author of the book In Living Service, A Prosperous Coach. And she was willing to take one of our coaching sessions and instead come and share with all of you some of her experience. So Melissa will talk a little bit, and then after we're finished with that, we'll do some Q&A. Good, Melissa?
Sounds great.
Okay, I'll let you take it from here. Thanks.
Okay, all right. Well, first of all, I want to say hello to everybody. I'm very honored to be with you. I love the fact that Wayne sent me the YouTube that he had put together, the video introducing everybody. So Tom Garrity, I want to say congratulations for 20 plus years of business. I need to learn from you. And Spencer coming from, I think, Ohio, right?
Yeah.
Okay, and then the power couple that I'm looking at over there. But yes, you people who have, I don't know how many businesses. And then can you tell me your name again between Spencer and Tom?
Kane D'Amico.
Kane from Connecticut. Welcome. And everybody else who's on Zoom, like I said, I'm excited to be here. And I get to talk about my favorite subject, which is service. And I have to tell you, years ago, I did not even know what it meant. And when I started to discover what it meant, it was probably the number one thing that I hated. So I want to share with you my journey and what changed for me over the last 12 years. And I also, as you listen, I want you to listen for who you used to be or who you currently are, or both, in my story, and to be open to any insights or questions that come to you that you can ask during the Q&A, or you can share some of the insights that will have you living from greater service in your own life, whether it's in your business with your employees or your vendors, your prospects, your customers, your clients, or in your own personal life and your relationships. Okay. And one last thing I want to say, I really love how Wayne teed this up by saying that you are all coaches. And you're all coaches. And I also want to say all coaches are leaders. So I want to talk about service, and then we'll see where this goes. Okay. All right. So a little over 12 years ago, I decided that I was done struggling, trying to figure out how to grow a business. I had worked with a friend of mine, and I would call her my hobby partner. We didn't have a business. We were highly unsuccessful at enrolling groups. I did not know how to create one-on-one clients. And I spent a lot of my time blaming her for our lack of progress internally. Like, she was the reason, because she didn't have it together, why I couldn't move forward. But the truth of it was that I was afraid. I really didn't know if I could do it. And so after about 14 years of this, I hired a coach. And I don't know if you've had Steve Chandler come and talk to your group yet, but he's been my coach for the last 10 plus years. If you haven't experienced him yet, you're going to love it. And he was perfect for me because what I wanted to do was simply to make money. I wanted to get clients so I could make money. And then once I got the client and they paid me, then I would be happy to help them. I was a completely different person back then. And fortunately, I hired Steve, and Steve was all about service. And so I invested in working with him for a year. And in that first year, I tried to dodge the ongoing question he would ask me, which would simply be, Melissa, what would serve this person? Because I didn't know what he was talking about. In my family growing up, we didn't volunteer, we didn't give back. We helped one another, but that wasn't part of my growing up. So I was like in a foreign country listening to Steve talking about what would serve. And I think about 6 months into that first year, I finally out of frustration said to him, what do you mean? Like, what does that mean to serve? And he said to me, help someone before they pay you. And I got to tell you, when I heard that, I thought, that's a bad business strategy. Help somebody before they pay you. I mean, you know, I wasn't in this because I was altruistic. I wanted to create a profitable business, but he kept saying it and I was in for a year. And so I thought, okay, I got to go with this. So I began to serve my form, which was, oh, I get it. Coaches don't sell, they serve, wink, wink. That's what they do. And it became a strategy for me. It became a technique. It was a thing that I did so I could give to get. I could get a client. I could create some income. And that went on to some degree over the course of about 3.5, 4 years. So I'm a slow learner. I like to learn in stages. And that's what it was for me. And the upside of that was that I became so educated and so involved with what service meant and continue to this day. It literally became this thing that I was trying to understand, that I was grappling with. And eventually there was a turning point for me. So in the beginning, like I said, those first 3.5, 4 years, and I'm trying to grow a business and I'm struggling. I'm like at 5 figures. I can't seem to get past that. I saw that I was giving more, but there still was an attachment to getting. There still was a need to have this client sign up. There still was a need to be the expert. There still was a need to get them to see that what I was offering could help them. And then what happened around 2014 was I had 2 colleagues. Their names are Dave Schwendeman and Gary Mahler. And they approached me and they said to me, Melissa, do you want to play a game? And I have to tell you, back then, anything related to games I wasn't into. So I'm like, oh my gosh, these guys want to play a game. And they said, yeah, we want to play a service game. And the service game is going to be where we're going to powerfully serve other people and help them before they pay us. And we're going to be totally unattached to whatever fear seems to control us. We're going to be unattached. And I said, okay, what's your fear? Dave's fear was that if he was a powerful coach and he heard somebody's story and he called them out on it, he'd get it wrong. And he was terrified of getting it wrong. Okay. Gary's fear was not being liked. He wanted to please people. He wanted people to like him. And my fear was nobody was going to hire me. So here I had spent all this money on coaching. Here I found a profession I loved, and I wouldn't be able to do it. So we decided we're going to play this game for 3 months. We're going to serve each other. We're going to help each other. We're going to encourage each other, just like you guys do in Business Builder Camp. And we're going to go for it. And for me, it had been so long that I was trying to get money and trying to be the expert and trying to look like I had it together. At this point, I thought to myself, you know what? I might as well find out what's true. Does this service thing really work? And so I was in 100%. And I thought, I'm just going to help people and I'm going to offer them conversations. And what started to happen for me was I started to see what service really was. It wasn't a technique. It wasn't a tool. It was a way of being. Like I saw it. And we played this game for 3 months. And I started to create clients and make money. And I was astounded. And I felt better and better because the focus was off of me. The focus was off of what did people think about me? Did they like me? And it was on the other person. And during this period of time, I didn't even come to somebody and say, do you want to talk about what it would look like together? I didn't even propose to people. I helped them and I helped them. And then some would say thank you, and others would say, what would you like to continue? And then I was prepared, and I would tell them, and I had a new client. It was so powerful. And for all of us, Dave, Gary, myself, that we decided we'd play it for over 2 years. And today I still play it. Today I still prioritize service. I prioritize focusing on the other person. I prioritize getting into their world, helping them as much as I can. And what I discovered is that service is loving someone else. I had no idea. So that's what happened during that game. And I continue to coach with Steve, and I continue to grow my service. And I continued to develop as a leader who knew how to help people, who knew how to be an owner of their own spirit, an owner of their own situation, not a victim of other things. I learned how to not just listen, but listen generously. And this is something that I just learned from a book. It's called The Collaborative Way. I learned how to listen generously with a willingness to be influenced. And I still practice that. I learned how to ask useful questions, not judgments disguised as questions. I learned how to be more compassionate. One of my favorite things about learning how to be more compassionate is that word, I never understood that word, kind of like I didn't understand service. And one of the things that I learned to be more compassionate was that anytime I felt some judgment towards a prospect, a client, my husband, my adult children, I would take a piece of paper and a pen, and I would list whatever it was that they should be doing or they shouldn't be doing. And then I'd take each item and I'd see where I was actually doing that currently. So I could see me too. And then the compassion could flow. So I learned that. I learned how to take any complaint that I might have and turn it into a request of a client. I learned how to co-create agreements with clients. So I learned all these things. And what started to happen, the best part was that who I was being changed. And service was a way for me to really lead a more prosperous life, not just financially, but prosperous in the terms of the relationships in my life, the ones I just mentioned, my personal relationships, my friends. And it was also a way for me to have a better day-to-day. There's nothing like getting up in the morning. And even if I wake up into a bad mood, I can ask myself, who do I want to serve? And the game changes. So there I was. Service took on a new definition. It was a new way of being. And today, I still look for areas to expand it. And one of the things that I do, and I don't know if any of you can relate to this, but one of the things that I do is I look for where the discomfort is, where the resistance is, and then I head towards that. Can anybody relate to that? There's something you want to do, and there's some hesitation. There's some concern. Will I be able to do this? Will they say yes? Can I pull it off? And then I start looking at those edges and I say to myself, what's there? What's the concern? What's the worry? What's the fear? And for me, time and again, heading in that direction has been a portal to greater freedom and a greater self-expression and more aliveness and a higher level of consciousness and a greater ability to serve. Because what happens is whatever those stories are, whatever those beliefs are that are limiting me, I'm able to bring them to my coach. I'm able to look at them myself, and I'm able to see them for what they are, which are falsehoods. They're not true. They might feel real, they might feel true, but I've discovered that anything that creates a negative experience is not true. So that's what I do. I keep heading in that direction. So if somebody says to me, hey, do you want to do a 3-part webinar together? And I can feel a little trepidation, I'm in. Or if I have somebody who comes into my world, a client, a potential client, and I know I can help them, but I'm aware they need to hear something first, I'm willing to say what I might not be comfortable saying. I'll do it. Because the more that I can grow that service, the more that I can grow that love, the bigger the impact. So those are some examples. Or if I meet somebody and we talk and we coach and I realize I can't help them, I'll tell them. I'll tell them, I can't help you. And I've had people ask why. And I'll say, well, sometimes because you're so committed to your story. There's not even an opening there for something to change. And sometimes I'll even say, if you're 3% more open, there's a possibility we can do something. So I've practiced over and over. This isn't something that, you know, once it's integrated, it's yours. It's a way of being that has to keep being lived and practiced. And so I do it in my professional life, and I've brought it into my personal life. One of the things that my coaches told me my coach told me years ago, because I was so focused on making money. He said to me, as I began to make more money, he said, you know, Melissa, when your personal life goes well, your business life will soar. And up until that point, he had never told me something that didn't become true. So I was like, maybe I need to look at this. And I started getting coached on my personal life, and it was true. Relationships got better, and more intimacy, closer with the people that I loved. And then that impacted me and how I showed up with my clients who were struggling with the same things. Because this is what I've discovered after coaching for this period of time. We're same but different. We're different in the fact that the stories might have different words and different events, but we're the same in the sense that we all have this infinite potential. We all want to love and be loved. We all want to create. We all want to experience a greater aliveness and an ability to make an impact on other people. Everybody. So what I'd like to do is stop there and ask if you have any comments, any questions, any insights you'd like to share, because I'd love to be able to engage with you one-on-one and respond in that way. Is there anyone?
Thanks, Melissa.
Yeah.
Well, Melissa, it's Tom.
Hey, Tom.
Can you come over here? There you go.
Hello.
Hi.
Oh. Hi. It's like confession, huh?
I'm exactly. I'm in the confessional. I loved your comment of being too committed to your story. I probably can't help you. I don't know much to say about that. It just really struck a chord. And so we're a consulting firm, coaching firm, and with family businesses, and that's a big breakthrough for me, quite frankly. And that will really help the rest of my team, because there's just sometimes they're too committed to their story. The time's not right. So I really don't have much more to say. That was just very insightful.
Yeah, nice. Thank you. You know, Tom, how that initially came about was during that phase that I was really struggling with trying to create clients. I decided my coach could not help me because he's a man. And nobody understood a struggle around money like a woman. And so there's a woman out there, her name, let me think, she wrote the book, Overcoming Under Earning. Wayne, do you remember her name?
No. I don't.
Okay, I'll get it. And I decided I was going to hire her. And so we had a 20-minute consult. And I used to practice law, so I had this big legal pad, and I had all these questions because I was going to maximize my 20 minutes. And I told her all the reasons why I hadn't succeeded. And I told her how my husband had not supported me. And I talked about my friend that had gotten in the way. And I really needed some help. Like, man, I had all the detail down. And I said to her, and we're on the phone. This was before people did Zoom. And I said, can you help me? And there was this pause. And she had kind of like this raspy cigarette voice. And she said, you know, honey, I don't think so. And I stood there in my kitchen because I had created a fantasy that she was the one. She was going to help me. This was going to be the turning point. And I was dumbfounded. And I went, what do you mean you can't help me? Why? Again, another pregnant pause. And she says to me, I don't know. Well, I wasn't going to get off the phone until I got an answer. I'm like, guess. Just take a wild guess. Why do you think you can't help me? And she says, because you're so committed to your story. And I heard that and I just went, you're right.
Yeah.
I am. This is another thing about being coached and growing a business. And all of you are growing businesses and getting coached. it's humbling as hell sometimes. It really is. But that's the best part, because that means something's changing. In the moment that she said it, I went, yeah, you're right. And I said, so I want to do this work, and I'm willing not to be so committed to my story. You know, I was the perfect client, begging for her to work with me. And we did. And you know what I realized? It wasn't if it's a man or a woman. It wasn't any of it. It was I willing to loosen my grip on the story? Because you know what? I needed to be so right. And I discovered, you know what? Over time, I'd rather be wrong than right. My relationships are better when I'm wrong. I can learn something. You know, being right is about being closed. It's about defending and protecting. And being willing to be wrong is about being open. So Tom, I'm glad it helped you. It certainly helped me. And her telling me that was the biggest gift ever. So when you do that with people who come along in your world, many of them may not be ready, but I bet it'll wake a lot of people up.
Yeah, I guess the other piece, Melissa, as you're talking, I'm thinking, it's not about being right or wrong. You're committed to your story, probably more than I can help you break through. Like the empathy of not like you're all screwed up, too bad about that. Like you're just not ready. And maybe they'll not even verbalizing that, but having that empathy to hang in there with somebody, yeah, it just helps me think about a whole different way to show up, including in my, obviously, as you said, my personal relationships, right? I got my own deep stories about the way I think things should be. So yeah, it's good. Thanks.
Yeah, you're welcome. Great question. Thank you.
How does that, how might that show up? To tie it into a lot of people here aren't going out and developing clients like Tom, but they've got employees and they're all coaches. Everybody here is a coach. Dave Ricker, I saw join the call. He's a CFO, and he was sharing with me that he's got a mentee. He's got a junior accountant on his team, so he's coaching somebody. He's mentoring everybody without going through them all. How do you think this shows up? People have stories that come to them. Maybe they have their own. Could it be helpful to have people develop a legal pad of questions or things they believe to be true? How do you think that would work in the team setting in a lot of these businesses with coaching employees?
Yeah, you know, Wayne, I think I want to start off and I want to say, you know, you as a leader, you know your mentee, you know your employees. And if you don't know them, get to know them. And we can all see one another's insecurities. It's often hard to see our own. So you can see it and have great empathy and compassion for it. And take time with people. When you see somebody who's defending and stuck in a story, sometimes the best way in, depending upon the individual, is to share where you've been stuck in your own story. Because then what it does is it levels the playing field. So instead of it being, let me point out what's wrong with you, seems like you're really stuck in that story. I can share something, which is, I know you really want to change here. And I want to share with you what created a breakthrough for me. And it was somebody pointing out my commitment to a story, a narrative that wasn't working for me anymore. And I see that in you. You know, are you open to starting to see what that is and moving beyond it truly? Because when you do, your ability to be in this role and to make a difference and to continue to grow and be promoted and do more of the things you want to do, all of that's possible for you. So sometimes it's just that initial connection. And then there are things like being able to ask somebody, you know, send me what seems true to you that has you so frustrated. That's their story. Because I don't know if you, and you've probably done this with Wayne, but know the distinction owner versus victim. It's a great distinction because we're either the owner of our spirit, our relationships, our situations, our circumstances, meaning how do we respond to it versus being reactive to it, or we're a victim of it. Like my story about me, about all the people that were holding me back. So sometimes it can be useful to introduce audios to somebody like owner victim and say, would you listen to this? Can we talk about it? Because we all have one-on-ones with our team members. So these are possible ways in. And I know you can think of other ways too, because you've coached people in your organization and you know what works for one person versus another.
Melissa, this is Scott.
Hey, Scott.
I'm calling in from Ohio. I appreciate what you're saying. There's something that you said that I can't get past. I can barely take notes after you said it. Detach from the fear that controls you. Can you speak more about the process of detachment? I'll give you a little bit of background. I lost my job 7 years ago as a 50-year-old, and I'm encouraged to hear you say you're a slow learner, because I think I have the corner on that market. But I'm finding myself controlled by the fear of the cash flow. And, you know, it's consuming, and yet I resonate with the service that you're referring to. What was it like to detach from the fear?
So, first of all, thanks for your honesty. You know, all of us are attached to something, the cash flow, the, well-being of another person, our own well-being. I mean, we're attached to something, which basically means we're attached to something that isn't true. And I'm not saying there isn't money leaving your account, maybe more going out than coming in. I'm not saying that isn't true, but what I'm saying is there's a story around it that creates kind of a internal panic or a low-grade anxiety, or like you said, an ongoing distraction. And what I discovered was that when part of my mind was on that, and the other part of my mind was on serving to create clients, the service was diluted. Like the real ability to listen, to be present, was diluted. Like I couldn't really show up to help. And so for me, what it was when I started to notice that just little kernel of angst, or will they hire me? When I started to notice that would show up, I had made a commitment to the game and to these two guys I was playing with and to myself, that the minute it showed up, I would shift the focus off of me and I'd get back in the game. So it was about recommitting. Because if I had absolute charge over my mind, I wouldn't have been in that place. But I don't. It's like thoughts come in and they start gripping. And oftentimes I don't even know they're there until I feel the physical sensation. It might be gripping me in my throat, or I might have tense shoulders. But I could start to go, okay, what's going on? Oh yeah, there it is. And then I'd recommit. And I got really good at recommitting. And recommitting doesn't mean you didn't commit in the first place. It just means commitment wanes. It fades. That's the nature of it. And I'm back in the game. Every day. And sometimes in the beginning, and I'm really talking about the first 6-9 months into that game, man, I was recommitting sometime on an hourly basis. And what it was really back in service. And I got really curious about what does service look like without this fear? And that's when I started being able to say things that I hadn't said before, because there was the worry that if I say those things, they're not going to hire me. They hired me because I said those things. You know, they, as a leader in an organization, a mentee, because that gets said with love, will hear it and blossom. So I'm going to stop myself here and ask you, what have you heard so far that could be useful for you when you think about service and you think about the cash flow thing?
I think I'm going to enter the game,
Mhm.
and I'm going to commit to building a service, not building a company.
Beautiful.
And I'm prepared for recommitting until it becomes my nature. I love what you said, that the story, the narrative around the fear of cash flow is what's not true.
Right. Right.
It's and the path through that fear, or to beat that fear, is the commitment to service.
Yes. Yes. That's it. Another thing that's helpful that I do, and I did a lot of, was that I got really familiar with the story, with the narrative around the fear. Because a lot of times what we do is fear shows up and it's like, ooh, I got to push it away. I've got to protect myself from it. I've got to overcome it. Maybe if I ignore it. And really all that does is reinforce it. It reinforces the story that's driving it. So what you can do, Scott, is you can get a piece of paper, and sometimes I'll just do this in the morning for 5 minutes, and write down what are the thoughts that fuel the story. You know, I won't be able to figure this out. I failed before in the past. I was never good with money, whatever it is. And then slow down, and not from a personal place, not from a this is really me, but from a curious, more removed witnessing place. Question the validity of those thoughts. Is it true? Like, really, is it true? And start to just see what shows up. And you'll be able to start to, you do that enough with discipline and rigor, you'll be able to see that the narrative really doesn't change much. You know, our minds are pretty boring. They come up with one thing, you know, and it's like we're over-identified with a deep neural pathway that's been grooved into the brain, and it's not us. That's what minds do. They are amazing when they're the servant to what we are, which is this love and this compassion. They're amazing. But when they take over and now they're the master and we're getting dragged around, that's the suffering. Yeah.
That's great. Thank you.
You're so welcome. You're so welcome. And I just want to say one last thing, because I love this little story. My parents had friends, Evelyn and Bill, and they were married for 60 some odd years. And at one of the milestone anniversaries, they were asked, how did you stay married for so long? And Evelyn said, every morning I recommitted to loving Bill. I went, man, she knew what was up. Yeah, thank you.
Hey, Melissa,
Yeah.
I'm Scott as well.
Hey, Scott.
I'm out in Snowmass, Colorado.
Oh, nice.
So I'm a business coach, and I work mostly with startups. And what resonated for me, and I think what my story is, I come to people and I really have this urge to powerfully serve them. and like you know, I'll spend time with them. I mean, sometimes 3-4 hours, but then I come to this point where I start, my story is I start feeling taken advantage of at some point. And I'm like, hey, it's enough. You know, it's time for you to shit or get off the pot. It's time for you guys to commit, you know, and that's it for me, you know, um, you know, and I think my story is, hey, I've powerfully served you enough. It's time for us, you know, to make a commitment here. So, you know, that's kind of what started sticking in my craw a little bit. And I'd like you to address how you know, maybe that wasn't your thing, but maybe it was, and how did you get past it?
Yeah, yeah. Thanks, Scott. You know, so when I would start to feel resentful, what I would realize what was operating was I had an expectation. I do this, and then you're going to do this.
Right.
And what happens with that is either I'm going to get mad or resentful, or I'm going to feel disappointed. And so in my own coaching, I remember there was a time where I would serve someone and we'd have a couple of conversations, and then I would be ghosted. And I'd get angry.
Yeah.
And I would come to my coach and I'm like, I can't believe this. Look at what this person's done to me. And he would say to me, you know, first of all, nobody's done anything to you. You're personalizing this, Melissa. You're making it about you. What's really going on is this person didn't stay committed to themselves. They didn't. They scheduled an appointment. They confirmed that it was happening, or you confirmed, or whatever. And then they basically didn't honor their word to themselves. And so they ghosted themselves. That's what occurred. And he said, until you start to really see that, what people will do, anything that they will do, it will show up as a personal affront to you. And I knew what he was saying was true. And so I started to look for those places where I had an expectation, and I started to shift it. So how I shifted it was, for instance, if you spend 3 or 4 hours with someone, an option, and you may already do this, Scott, an option would be to say, you and I are going to spend half a day together, and I'm going to help you. And we're going to look at what is and is not working in your business. And we're going to look up what's required. We're going to work together on what's required for you as a startup now, and who you need to be as a leader, and anything that seems to get in your way. And then we're going to leave half an hour at the end. And we're going to talk about whether or not it makes sense for us to continue in a paid relationship. If it does, we'll get clear about what it is, and we'll talk through what it looks like. If what's occurred here for 3.5 hours moves the needle for you in some way, and then you decide you're not ready to continue, that's good too. So I would literally say what I needed to hear.
Right. No, I mean, it's good. I mean, I do that. So I do that not all the time, but sometimes, and you know, and a lot of times I anticipate that they're going to say, I don't know. And I'll say, hey, if I hear I don't know, to me, that is no. And that's okay. You know,
Yeah.
and I take it away. I try to take it off the table. So,
Yeah.
you know, if they say, hey, I don't know, I'm not, okay, well, you're not ready to make a decision right now. That's fine. That's okay. You know, to me, that means no. And, some point you're ready, call me.
Yeah, so there's still some energy, Scott, about an expectation or a disappointment that I'm feeling from you.
Yeah,
Kind of like,
good.
well, you're not ready, take it off the table, see you later, call me if you need me. So the whole thing is that you're going to be giving with no expectation they're going to sign up at all, zero zip. So for you, your service game would be bringing it, and nobody's going to hire you. Nobody, no one. And you're going to bring it. And at the end, when they go, I don't know, because it's not necessary for you to be hired, you might say, tell me more. What do you mean?
Yeah, that's good.
Well, I mean, this is great, but I'm going to go talk to 2 other coaches and I'm not sure if this is really what I want to do. And then I might say to them, go talk to those 2 other coaches. And if it would help you to talk again, let's take an hour and work on anything. And then you and I are good. So I keep doing the very thing that I need to do to be unattached. So I'll get people who will have a couple of conversations with me, and then I'll hear, yeah, I have to think about it. If I hear I've got to think about it, there hasn't been enough service.
Yeah.
And if I feel like there has been, and they're getting a little dicey around money, I have a policy, and my policy is this: nobody leaves having to think about it. No way. So what I'll say is, you go think about it. And whether we work together or not, come back, let's do 1 more hour. Let's really work on whatever will make the biggest impact. And then you and I are good. And because I'm doing and saying who I need to be unattached, because it can still show up for me at times, but I am going to realign with that giving, and then it's going to be up to them if they want to do it. Is any of that helpful to you? Because it's going to come from it's shifting in you.
Yeah, no, it's really helpful. Really, really helpful. No, I mean, I do have energy about, it's almost, and I hear it from myself. It's almost like a fuck you, excuse me. It's like, hey, look, I've given you my time, fuck you. And I hear that from myself sometimes. So it's a great reflection on your part. Thank you.
Yeah. And, bring it and get some coaching on it, because there's no shame in that. There's just confusion around what it takes to really serve someone. That's all. Because, I remember I thought if I got really great at service, everybody would say yes. Like if I really bring it, everybody's going to say yes. And my coach looked at me and he goes, are you delusional? This isn't how sales work. Some people say yes, some people say no, some people say, I've got to talk to my astrologer. Some people say, it's like, well, what? Who cares? And I thought, gosh, he's right. I thought, well, they would say yes, they owe me something. He's like, yeah, no, that's not how it works. And I realized that's when it was getting so personal to me. This is business. It's a game. It's a game. Thanks, Scott.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Melissa and Scott. Thank you for playing there. Thank you for being open. And I'd encourage everybody, since I'm recording it, to go to that point, rewind how Melissa coached Scott in that moment. If you watch that again, you will see things for how you can get agreements with your employees too. For those of you that have team members, there's really gold in that moment of staying steady. And that service, Melissa, I appreciate watching it as well as hearing you talk about it. You served powerfully there. Thanks for showing us that.
Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah, and I encourage anybody who wants to talk about leadership and teams and getting people on board, please bring that. It's the same thing.
The benefits of being Hispanic is that it is a absolutely inclusive culture from many different racial backgrounds and because it's Hispanic.
So who else has an insider question?
At the risk of taking more time, I would just want to mention something, an observation. James Clear in his book Atomic Habits talks about the inside out habit forming, where you decide the type of person you want to become and then prove it to yourself with small wins. I wrote down in my notes here, I'm a service giver. How would a service giver handle this? And just act like a service giver. Act like somebody who's building a service, not a business. And that's powerful. Just a
Nice. Yeah.
just a
I love
comment, no
that.
question.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm going to go back to Scott from Snowmass. I really loved that exchange. And Melissa, so I'm writing with you, Scott, and I'm going, yeah, okay, so they say that. And I know you don't say F you, but you feel like that. And then I'm in your character as you're talking, and I'm like, yeah, so what would I do? And I have a tendency to start dancing, like, oh, like you're saying, Melissa, give them more service, serve. But I'm thinking, give them versus just serve. And when you said, hey, Scott, let's talk about that again. I'm really feeling you still got some issues around this, you're hanging on to whatever. What if you just simply said, oh, tell me more? Oh my God, I turned to Wayne and I go, well, that's gold. That's all that needs to be done. Just tell me more.
Yeah.
I'm back into service. They're people don't know what to do other than answer that. And all, of course, everything, all the gold's in there, whatever they have to say. So
Yeah.
that was Scott. Thanks for setting it up. And Melissa, tell me more. 3 words. Like, wow. Great stuff. And as employees, I've got 5 employees, same thing. I'll get in my own head trash when they're resisting, let's say, something that I think my story is, well, you should do it this way. Tell me more. Where are we stuck? Wow, that was great. So thanks.
Yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome. And I love the phrase head trash.
We have another question here, or insight, Kane.
Yeah, I had an insight right at the beginning when you got started, and you said that you had a hobby partner. I have a business partner, and our business is a business. It's not a hobby. But what stung me was when you said that you blamed your partner for your lack of success, like internally. And I do that often when we're butting heads, or when things aren't going, when we're in a disagreement, or when we're not, when I have an idea or a thought or a story that I'm convinced is the truth, and he's opposite or not going along with it, right? Internally, I go through that whole thing where I blame him. We could be making so much more progress, or things could be better if he would just listen to me. And I go through that whole blame cycle internally as well.
Yeah. It's good to see it. What if anything has worked for you to move beyond that? Have you worked with that and noticed it and said, okay, what do I want to do differently?
So I do get to notice it, and just going back to the fact that he sees things his way, he's his self, he has his own perspective and his own thoughts on our business and on whatever the situation might be, and I stay with that. I mean, not always, but I don't get trapped in the blame. I don't get trapped in the whole screw him thing. It happens like that, the thoughts come and then the emotions come with it.
Yeah.
And then as long as I take time with it, I go back to the other part. Well, he's also a person, just like I'm a person. He's an individual. He's got He's got his own thoughts and feelings, and that brings me back when my emotions are out of it, then it brings me back to the conversation with him
Good,
from a different perspective.
good. It's almost like hitting the pause button, you know?
Mm.
Like when you start, what I do is when I start to notice that crunch, you know, the blame of this, it's like hit the pause button because I'm not in my right mind. I'm a little insane. Thinking that this person is responsible for how I feel, when I know that what is occurring is there's some thoughts that are flooding the system that I'm not even conscious to. And like you said, then you kind of become conscious to it. And they are what's driving the entire emotional experience and then the behaviors that I engage in. So that's one of the things that has helped me so much, is to really start to understand more about the mind. And then I can take a little bit of time. And like I was saying to Scott, you know, I can jot down what are the complaints? What is the blame? Because I want to know what they are. Instead of, see, the mind loves keeping everything ambiguous. It loves gray and things being nebulous because it can keep running then. But if it gets put down on paper, now I can look at this and I'm like, oh, here's the complaint. Like if you would share one of your complaints, what is one of your complaints about this guy?
One of my complaints about my partner is he doesn't like meetings.
Okay.
He doesn't like anything that seems too official. So if we have to have a meeting about a monthly meeting about our P&L, he doesn't want to schedule the meeting. He would rather just find me and interrupt me when he's ready to review the P&L.
Okay. Okay. So then how could you turn that complaint into a request of him?
Well, I would say explaining to him that it works for me if I have time scheduled and blocked, so that my mind isn't on something else when he is ready to sit and review the P&L. And I could request that we schedule a recurring time once a month where we could review the financials.
Yeah, nice. Have you done that?
I like to say yes, but probably not.
Yeah, yeah, fantastic. I mean, that's usually my complaint. I'm like, yeah, I know I've asked, and then I think about it, I'm like, I don't think I've ever asked. So that's it. It's like, you know, we get caught in this complaint. We all do. The mind goes off. And then if we slow down and we get clear, like, what is that? Now we can convert it. And this is everything I've learned from my coach, into a request. Now I move out of being a victim of this situation. And the situation is really my interpretation of it. I get to move out of that and I get to upgrade it to a request where it's clean, it's clear, it's specific. So I love what you said. I have a request. I would like us to schedule a recurring monthly meeting to look at the P&L and spend 30 minutes or 60 minutes where we slow down and look at this. Is that something you're open to? Can we create an agreement around this? Well, you know, I mean, who knows what he might say? Well, I just want to drop in from time to time and we can just do it that way. Say, yeah, it's a way we could do it, but I've got a request. And it's for us to have a meeting. And let's pick a time where it works for you and it works for me. And then ask him to tell you what might work. Would he be open to that? Does he want to do this? And then you can co-create, operative word, phrase, and come up with it and come up with an agreement and get it in the calendar. And if for some reason he starts to slide around on that, it's not him. Come back to the agreement. It's not strong enough. And I've got a couple of audios, and Wayne might also have them on turning complaints into requests and co-creating agreements. If you'd like to have them, I'm happy to provide them. Wayne may have them as well.
Sure.
I'd
Yeah.
love to have them.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Kane, how is that? What are you hearing in what I just said?
What I'm hearing is in the request part of it, right? Like,
Yep.
again, I think that I've requested it, but it probably sounds more like this, like, dude, I don't have time for this shit right now. Can we catch up later? I'm in the middle of something. That was probably my request to him, right? The last time he did that to me. So I think that I requested it, but I didn't. So it's more of a formal request, grab his attention and explain to him, right? And get him to agree to it and find something that mutually works for the two of us.
Yeah.
Take a couple of minutes to really work that out.
Yeah.
Versus just me telling him what's best for me. So how about you just agree to what's best for me?
Wonderful. Right. Going back to the fact it's co-created. And if he's like, I don't want to do that, I just want to drop in. Tell me more. Well, blah, 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 blah. Well, let me tell you why this would work for me. And I really want us to get an agreement around this, because I know you want to work on these financials. I know you want to review it and the importance of it. Let's set some time aside. Who knows? You might have a monthly lunch where you get together and that's what you do. Yeah. It's so cool what you're seeing, because it is typical thinking that a request has been made, but it's not. I used to think I was making requests of my husband all the time. I would say, hey, listen, I'm going to go here and I'd love for you to come, but you don't have to. What? That's not a request. What is that? I mean, what did you say, Tom?
It's a setup. No matter how he answers, he's screwed.
Oh gosh. Well, I could never get an answer because there was never a question. There was never a request. All right. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Great question.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah.
Melissa,
Yeah. Hi, Susie.
hi. I just, a comment. I really love what you said about when your personal life goes well, your business soars. And just smacked me in the face. What a theme for today. We walk in and Wayne has our rebalancing sheets on the table. And then Tom spent some time talking to us about his system of business, family, and ownership. And I thought, oh, wow, that's just really speaking to me. Because ironically, I pushed my rebalancing sheet to the side to work on my plan. And I think it's just a really big piece. And it's why I'm in private practice. It's why I do what I do. So I have time with my family and can do those things. But we get stressed, we get working, and it gets less of a priority. So I love that. Like, because if I'm happy, I serve people better.
Yeah.
I'm happy when I'm with my family. So I just love that comment.
Yeah. Good. That's fantastic. Yeah. I have to tell you, it's funny again, the things that we resist. It's like, no, really the focus is this. I've got to stay on this. I've got to deal with this. And then to start to actually see that what is going to be my commitment. And I learned this from my coach. He would say to me, your commitment is the ongoing conscious purpose that you're committed to. It's an ongoing conscious purpose, and you can put a system in place for it. And he shared a story about how a guy, part of what he had in his daily calendar was a slot, like 15 minutes, whatever. And it was in some sort of cryptic message. And my coach asked, what is that? And he said, oh, it's a reminder to do something nice for my wife. It was an ongoing conscious purpose. And so that's what I'm hearing. So I love you saw you pushed it away and you just bring it back in there.
Yeah, thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank you.
Hi, Melissa. This is Jared. I'm in
Hi.
Washington, but I'm from Arizona. I coach fire chiefs. It is better to be wrong than right.
Mhm.
Processing that one. Because I hear it and I understand it. In the midst of coaching, when you coach in a way that you feel is right, but you know it's going to come across wrong and it's not receptive, how do you process that as a coach? How do you work through that where you see clearly and you feel like this is where this individual needs to go, but they're not there and they see it as wrong?
They see what is wrong.
Just they see it as that's not where they need to go. I work with a lot of very strong individuals,
Mm.
and maybe they're not at that place at that moment.
Mm-hmm. Well, you
How
know
do you
what
keep working through it?
Yeah, what do I do with that? So, you know what I realize is that the stronger the individual, all that's a way of saying they're leading with their ego, right? So what I've learned, if I bring ego to meet ego, we're going nowhere. Like it's a standstill.
Mhm.
And so how I process that is, I want to find the crack. I want to find the way in. I want to see a little bit of light. And if it's ego to ego, nothing's going to happen. So as the coach, I want to put my ego to the side. And I want to start talking to who's behind the cardboard cutout. That's who I'm talking to. And if they're like, no, this is how we have to do it. Great. I didn't see that. Share more. Tell me specifically about what you're seeing. And then they're going to tell you, and then I can ask some questions around it. But I am going to be speaking to who they are, not the cardboard cutout. And that may take some time. Like I may have to show up for some sessions where, I've checked my image, my cardboard cutoff, it's over there on the shelf, and I'm sitting there and I'm listening and I'm loving them. And I totally understand that this ego thing that's happening is a learned way of being. That's a protective thing. And I'm going to hang in there with that person as it starts to dissolve. That's what I'm going to do. I had a woman who hired me. It was kind of like a micro influencer here in Chicago. And we started with three months together. She had a pretty big ego. And we were about 2 sessions away, maybe 3 sessions away from ending this small engagement. And I said to her, how has it been going? She goes, I'm a little disappointed in this coaching. And I'm like, oh, this is awesome. What are we going to do here? I'm a little disappointed in this coaching. And I said, tell me more. And she said, I thought I'd be a lot further along than I am. And because I was in this place of, this isn't personal, I got nothing to defend. I'm absolutely loving her. Out of my mouth comes, I thought the same thing. Why do you think you're not farther along? And she looked at me and she goes, because I've been afraid to do what I've discovered might be useful, and I haven't taken any action. And then she started laughing. So my point is that when you take care of where you're coming from, including, well, I could be wrong, which means there isn't any ego. Now that person's free to just stop defending, and the relationship starts to change. And it changes because of you. And I had to learn that in my personal life as well. You know, I used to get at a standstill with my husband, you know, this, that, you know, and finally, I was given the homework to test out that the minute I wanted to start defending my position, if I felt like I was getting blamed, was to simply say whatever the blame was, like, you're stubborn, or, you know, you, whatever. I would say, you know, I can be like that. And it literally felt like the Wicked Witch of the West melting. I'm dying, I'm melting. But that was something that I practiced. It was a way to just, you could be right. And I can be like that. So I'm going to stop. What's going on for you, Jared? What are you hearing here?
I'm hearing patience. There is a lot of requirement for patience for me in what I do and who I work with. A lot of them are extremely fast, and if I push to a point, they like to shift off as a deflection, which requires me to stay there and try to bring them back, because there's a reason they're deflecting, right? There's a reason. And so I find myself in the wrong quite often, but I feel like I still need to stay there. The ego is absolutely right, and it's my own ego at that point too, because maybe I am wrong, maybe I'm truly wrong, and maybe that isn't the right spot, and I have to be open to see maybe it's something different, and maybe I need to move a little bit, or ask a different question, or peek behind that curtain. They're very protective individuals. They operate, that's what their profession is. So they honestly, they protect themselves too. And so there's a lot of ego in it. And it's just the whole process. I love what I do, because I find myself just feeling inadequate so often. But I feel like it's a challenging side of me, you know, that inadequacy, but at the same time, I feel like, yeah, this is right, but it's still, yeah, it's hard on the ego for me.
Yeah. You know, one more thought, because I remember thinking I had to get it right, because if I didn't get it right, they wouldn't see me as a good coach.
Right.
And then I realized it wasn't about if I was right or I was wrong. It was simply about, could I help them move? And often it wasn't about saying, here's the right thing. It would be about offering an option and asking them what they thought. Right? It would be, I've got an idea, but you don't have to test it out, but it's an idea if you want to hear it. And it would also be if I would assert a position and then the person would move off of it. There was two things going on. One, it was a signal to me to stop asserting my position. I'm not a consultant, I'm a coach. So it's like, stop asserting my position and say, tell me, I said this was the right way to do it. And I noticed you wanted to move off of it or not address it. Tell me why. Like, I'd literally say what I saw, but not in an accusatory way. And then I would also do, I don't know at all. What do you see? What do you think would work here? If you've got a hell of a lot of experience. And let's start there. Let's start with what you see. And then I could just be the coach.
It's good.
What are you thinking?
It's funny you said the consultant coach, because these chiefs want consultants. Like they want, they go tell me, and then they push back and go, yeah, no. So it's the dichotomy and the constant balance. Yeah. So that phrase was interesting. Stay in the coaching environment and don't get lost.
Yeah. And then, even, I used to kind of bristle at, oh my gosh, I got it wrong. Oh, I didn't get it wrong. I just moved the conversation along. So come on, tell us what you need. Tell us what's right. Okay, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to give you an option. I don't know if it's right or wrong. And then you tell me what you think about it. Here it is. And they're like, yeah, no, that doesn't work. Good. What has that wrong answer inspired in you? What do you see? Boom, now we go. Because I'm just offering an idea.
It's good.
Yeah.
Good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll be thinking of you as you set aside the cardboard cutout.
Yeah.
Nice.
I think we have about 10 minutes, right? So there's one more, somebody that hasn't gone yet. Is that okay, Melissa?
Yeah, that's great.
I'll make a comment if that's okay.
I
Jared,
love that.
I'm Shelby.
Hey, Shelby.
I'm in Ohio too. That's my brother actually sitting right there in the middle.
Yeah.
Yeah. We work together with a family business and we sell rescue tools, and we actually work with a lot of firefighters. So Jared, I just want to say thank you for speaking up, because we have an employee who is a salesperson. He's a firefighter, and his ego is very big. And it's been hard for my brother and I to figure out how to kind of work with him and how to deal with him. So just by you saying, like, when we're telling him something and he's not receptive to it, now I just need to ask why. Well, what do you think you would do? How do you think that would help? But like, how do you dance around that without being judgmental, like you said in the beginning? Like, how do I ask understanding questions to him without judgment?
It's a practice.
Okay. Yeah.
It's
And
a
I'm
practice.
young too. So like a lot of this I'm kind of trying to figure out.
Yeah.
Being a woman too is a little bit of a difficulty. So
Yeah. In what way, Shelby, being a woman, is it a little more difficult?
well, they know everything. As a firefighter, they know what's right. And Jared probably knows a lot of this too. They just have a big ego. So
Yeah.
me stepping in younger, it's sometimes hard for him to understand and wrap his head around. And same with Spencer. My dad has been in this business for 50 years. So then my brother and I trying to get our footing in here, trying to be respected, is a big challenge in itself. But
Yeah. Well, you're in good hands, because Wayne's run businesses with his dad. I mean, that's a whole, that's next level fun.
yes.
So, and it's going to be practice, and it's definitely a journey. And it's about, it is, this not being judgmental and being accepting and being loving is a practice. And
Mhm.
it's something you commit to. And at first it felt like, well, that's kind of weak, isn't it? Like, that's kind of a weak place to come from. I should show up. But what I realized was practicing that more and more, what it gave me was a clear mind and an ability to stand in the situation without the discomfort, because the discomfort didn't come from the sales guy being right. It came from my judgment of who does he think he is? And, I'm actually one of the owners. And, if he weren't so bullheaded, that's where the discomfort's coming from. So when the mind settles down and that there's a space and an ease, I can speak up and say things. I can say, well, I'm going to share with you what I think is the best approach. And I want to hear what you think. I want to hear what you see works. And I want to ask you, as we have this conversation, can you be 2% open to a new idea? Because I will too. And let's work through this. And that way, there's been a request made up front as to how he's going to show up.
That's great.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank
Best of luck to you. I love you're doing this. And talk about, this is the coolest thing about business. The way business grows is you have to grow, and then the business grows.
Mhm.
So it's so exciting. So excited. And for both you and your brother, it's awesome.
Yeah, it's so
Yeah.
fun. Every day is
Yeah.
fun. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, Shelby. Anyone else? You guys ready for a break? Anybody else? Wayne, would it be at all? I know one of the things, Wayne, you wanted me to talk about was how I prep for being coached, because you coach everybody in this group, right?
In some way, yeah, either
In
in a
some
group
way.
or individually, yeah.
Yeah, would that be helpful, or would you prefer
Sure,
to kind of break?
Oh, we got 5 minutes, and so if you just take us out that way, if you want to, yeah, we're gonna end at 11:30. So
Good. Okay. So I learned how to be coached over time. The way I get coached today looks very different than 10 years ago. 10 years ago, Jared, I had a heck of an ego to protect. I didn't want to look like I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't want to be judged. So just know that with your employees and with Shelby, with the salesperson, that's what's going on for them. They want to look like they know, they want to be in control. That's just how it is. And so over time, I learned that I could actually make more progress, and I could learn quicker, and I could have more fun if I could be open and put my own ego aside. So now when I work with my coach, I don't care what he thinks about me. And by the way, he never thought anything about me. And if he did, that would be his judgment. It was what I was thinking he was thinking about me. So this is how I prep. And it helps me maximize my time. So when you're in a group getting coached by other people, or you're getting coached by Wayne, or you're working with, whatever, maybe you have your own mentor, is on my phone, I would have a notes list. And when I'd be going through my day, something would come to me. Maybe I would notice some resistance about something. I'd type that in the notes, ask about, this employee who thinks he knows it all, and I'm aggravated by him. Or I'd go along and I'd see something in my personal life, and I'd make notes in my phone. You could do it with a notepad. And then and this is just me, you can figure out your own system. But on the day that I was going to get coached, I'd give myself 2 to 3 hours in advance to go through what I had listed on my phone, to look at my calendar to see what else might pop up that seemed important. And then I would write down topics. And then I would go through those topics and I would ask, what is the question? And I would say, well, for instance, how do I talk to my mom about getting more help because she needs more help? She's 87, she's struggling. How do I talk to her about it without feeling like I'm taking something away? And then I would ask myself, why am I even asking that question? And I would see what was really going on was that I was afraid I would say something and it would negatively impact our relationship. So I got to the nugget as best I could, and I'd bring that in. I'd also bring the how-to, but I'd bring in the, let me tell you what's really going on. And I'd get coached there. So consider the prep work is what allows the conversation and your openness allows the conversation to be transformative. All right, that's all I got to say. And thank you. Thanks for being here. Thanks for your attention.
Thank you, Melissa.
Buddy, it sounds like your life's going to get realigned because your wife's going to get that work-life balance thing going on, which is awesome.
Yep.
And Scott, the FU thing, you've got this. You really do. Everybody. Such a pleasure to be with you.
Thank you very much.
All right, you guys. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye.
I wondered how she was making